Hello and welcome to Nightmare Lullabies. As you settle in for the night, prepare to be immersed in a world of eerie whispers and unsettling tales, designed to both chill and soothe. Now close your eyes, relax, and let the darkness carry you away. And if these nightly tales captivate you, feel free to join our community for more whispered secrets. In the summer of 2019, the city of Utica, New York, was a quiet place for 17-year-old Bianca Devins. She was a vibrant teenager with a passion for art and a growing online presence. Bianca had built a small but dedicated following on Instagram, where she shared her struggles with mental health and her creative projects. Her posts resonated with many, but they also attracted the attention of 21-year-old Brandon Clark, a young man from Cicero, New York, who would soon become a dark figure in her life. Bianca and Brandon had met online through Discord, a platform popular among gamers and niche communities. They bonded over shared interests, and their relationship quickly grew. By early 2019, they were meeting in person, often spending time together in Utica. Bianca saw Brandon as a friend, someone she could confide in about her challenges with borderline personality disorder and depression. Brandon, however, developed a deeper obsession. He began to see Bianca as more than a friend, despite her clear boundaries. On July 13, 2019, Bianca attended a concert in New York City with Brandon and another friend, Alex. The event was a chance for Bianca to enjoy a night out, listening to one of her favorite artists, Nicole Dollanganger. She was excited, posting pictures on Instagram with captions about how much the music meant to her. But the night took a tense turn. Bianca and Alex shared a kiss during the concert, a moment that Brandon witnessed. He had driven them to the event, and the sight of Bianca with someone else fueled his jealousy. The drive back to Utica was filled with silence. Brandon's mood darkened as he gripped the steering wheel, his thoughts spiraling. Bianca, unaware of the storm brewing inside him, continued to chat with Alex in the back seat. She had no idea that this night would mark the beginning of a tragedy that would shock the world. When they arrived in Utica, Brandon asked Bianca to step out of the car to talk privately. It was around 6 a.m. on July 14, 2019, and the streets were empty. Brandon led Bianca to a secluded spot near Poe Street, a quiet area with a tarp already laid out on the ground. He had planned this moment. He confronted her about the kiss, his voice low and accusing. Bianca tried to explain that she saw him as a friend, that she wasn't interested in a romantic relationship with him. But Brandon's obsession had already taken over. He pulled out a knife, and before Bianca could react, he attacked her with brutal force. The murder of Bianca Devins on July 14, 2019, would not only end a young life, but also ignite a firestorm online. Brandon's next actions would turn a private tragedy into a public spectacle, as he shared graphic images of Bianca's body on Instagram and Discord, exposing the dark intersection of social media and violence. The morning of July 14, 2019, in Utica, New York, was eerily quiet on Poe Street, where the lifeless body of 17-year-old Bianca Devins lay beneath a tarp. She had been brutally murdered by 21-year-old Brandon Clark just hours earlier, her throat slashed in a fit of jealousy after a concert the previous night. But the horror of Bianca's death was only the beginning. Brandon, fueled by a mix of rage and a twisted need for attention, was about to turn a private tragedy into a public spectacle that would shock the world. After killing Bianca, Brandon didn't flee the scene. Instead, he stayed by her body, his hands stained with her blood, his mind racing with a plan to amplify the horror. He pulled out his phone and began taking photos of Bianca's lifeless form, capturing the gruesome aftermath of his crime. At around 7 a.m., he posted the images to his Instagram story, where Bianca had a small but loyal following. The caption he added was chilling. "I'm sorry, Bianca." He tagged her account, ensuring her followers would see the post. Brandon didn't stop there. He also shared the photos on Discord, a platform where he and Bianca had first connected. In a server they both frequented, he uploaded the images with a message that read, You'll find her on Post Street. He included a selfie of himself, covered in blood, with Bianca's body visible in the background. The posts spread rapidly, as users on Discord began sharing the images across other platforms, including 4chan and Twitter. Within hours, the graphic content had gone viral, viewed by thousands of people around the world. Bianca's followers on Instagram were the first to react. Many initially thought the images were fake, a cruel prank by someone who had hacked Brandon's account. But as more details emerged, the reality set in. One of Bianca's friends, 18-year-old Emily, saw the post and immediately called Bianca's phone, hoping for an answer. There was none. Emily then contacted Bianca's mother, Bianca Devins, at 8 a.m., her voice trembling as she explained what she had seen online. Kimberly, 38, felt her heart drop. She called the Utica Police Department, begging them to check on her daughter. The police received multiple calls that morning, not just from Kimberly, but also from concerned social media users who had seen Brandon's posts. Officers were dispatched to Post Street, arriving at the scene around 8:30 a.m. They found Bianca's body under the tarp, her throat deeply cut, her blood soaking into the ground. The tarp, which Brandon had placed over her, did little to hide the brutality of the attack. Nearby, they found Brandon still at the scene, lying on the ground with self-inflicted wounds. He had stabbed himself in the neck in an apparent suicide attempt after posting the images. Paramedics rushed to stabilize Brandon, who was barely conscious but alive. He was taken to St. Elizabeth Medical Center in Utica, where doctors worked to save his life. The police secured the crime scene, collecting evidence, including the knife used in the murder and Brandon's phone, which still displayed the photos he had shared. The officers were horrified, not just by the murder itself, but by the fact that the crime had already spread across the internet, shared by countless strangers. Online, the reaction was a mix of outrage, grief, and morbid curiosity. On Instagram, Bianca's followers began posting tributes, sharing her artwork and photos of her smiling, trying to reclaim her memory from the horrific images Brandon had posted. But on platforms like 4chan, the response was darker. Users shared the photos repeatedly, some mocking Bianca's death with cruel memes, while others debated whether the images were real. The viral spread of the content overwhelmed social media moderators. Instagram removed Brandon's post within hours, but screenshots had already been shared widely. Discord banned the server where the images were first posted, but the damage was done. Bianca Devins and Bianca's stepfather, Robert, 40, were at home when the police called to confirm the worst. It was 9:30 a.m., and the officer's voice was heavy with sympathy as he told them Bianca had been found dead. Kimberly collapsed, her cries echoing through the house. Robert held her, his own eyes filled with tears, as they tried to process the loss of their daughter. But their grief was compounded by the knowledge that Bianca's death was being exploited online. Friends and family members began texting them, asking if they had seen the images circulating on social media. The invasion of their private pain felt unbearable. By the afternoon of July 14, 2019, the story had reached national news outlets. Reporters descended on Utica, interviewing neighbors and friends, trying to piece together the events leading to Bianca's murder. The Utica Police Department issued a statement at 2 p.m., confirming that a 17-year-old female had been found deceased and that a 21-year-old male suspect was in custody. They urged the public to stop sharing the graphic images, emphasizing the harm it caused to Bianca's family. The murder of Bianca Devins had already become more than a local tragedy. Brandon Clark's decision to share the crime on social media had turned it into a viral phenomenon, exposing the dark side of the internet and the challenges of moderating content in real time. As the police continued their investigation, the online world grappled with the ethics of what had happened, setting the stage for a case that would leave a lasting impact. The afternoon of July 14, 2019, in Utica, New York, was marked by a heavy silence on Post Street, where 17-year-old Bianca Devins had been found murdered just hours earlier. Her killer, 21-year-old Brandon Clark, had turned the tragedy into a viral spectacle by posting graphic photos of her body on Instagram and Discord. The images had spread across the internet, leaving Bianca's family and friends in anguish as they grappled with both her death and the public exploitation of her final moments. Meanwhile, the Utica Police Department was working swiftly to piece together the crime and apprehend the suspect, who was already in their custody, but not without a dramatic turn of events. When police arrived at the crime scene around 8:30 a.m., they found Brandon Clark lying near Bianca's body, his neck and chest covered in blood from self-inflicted stab wounds. After sharing the photos online, Brandon had called 911 himself, confessing to the murder and stating his intent to take his own life. During the call, he told the dispatcher, "I killed my girlfriend, and I'm going to kill myself now." He had already begun harming himself when officers reached the scene, but they intervened before he could finish the act. Paramedics stabilized him on site, and he was rushed to St. Elizabeth Medical Center in Utica for emergency surgery. By 10 a.m., Brandon was in stable condition, though heavily sedated. The police placed him under guard at the hospital, ensuring he couldn't escape or harm himself further. Detectives began processing the crime scene, collecting the knife used in the murder, Brandon's phone, and other evidence. They also interviewed witnesses, including Alex, the friend who had attended the concert with Bianca and Brandon the previous night. Alex, 19, was shaken as he recounted the events leading up to the murder. He told police about the kiss he shared with Bianca at the concert, which Brandon had witnessed, and the tense car ride back to Utica. Alex's statement confirmed the motive. Brandon's jealousy had driven him to kill. While Brandon was in the hospital, the online reaction to the murder continued to escalate. The graphic photos he had posted on Instagram and Discord had been shared thousands of times, reaching platforms like 4chan, Twitter, and Reddit. On Discord, users in the server where Brandon first shared the images were horrified, with some immediately reporting the content to moderators. But others began circulating the photos, turning Bianca's death into a viral phenomenon. On 4chan, anonymous users posted the images alongside cruel comments, some calling Bianca derogatory names, while others speculated about Brandon's motives. The lack of immediate moderation allowed the content to spread unchecked for hours. Bianca's online community, particularly her Instagram followers, fought back against the exploitation. Many of her friends and fans began posting tributes, sharing her artwork and photos of her smiling, using hashtags like #RIPBianca to reclaim her memory. A 16-year-old follower named Sarah posted on Instagram at 11 a.m., writing, "Bianca was an angel, she didn't deserve this. Stop sharing those pictures, let her rest in peace." But the darker corners of the internet continued to amplify the horror, with some users even creating memes that mocked Bianca's death. The contrast between the grief of her loved ones and the cruelty of anonymous trolls was stark, highlighting the internet's capacity for both compassion and harm. The Utica Police Department was inundated with calls from concerned citizens who had seen the images online. At 1 p.m., they issued a second statement, this time addressing the viral spread directly. Lieutenant Brian Coramato spoke to the press, his voice firm but strained. "We are aware of the graphic images circulating on social media," he said. "We urge the public to stop sharing them. This is a tragic loss for the family, and they deserve respect during this time. The suspect is in custody, and we are continuing our investigation." The police also worked with Instagram and Discord to remove the original posts, but the damage was already done. Screenshots had spread far beyond their control. Online, a heated debate erupted about the ethics of sharing such content. On Twitter, users argued over the responsibility of social media platforms. A user named @JusticeForBianca tweeted at 2:30 p.m., "Instagram needs to do better. Those pictures were up for hours. Bianca's family shouldn't have to see this." Others blamed the users who shared the images, with @Stop the Spread writing, "If you shared those photos, you're part of the problem. Have some humanity." But some defended the sharing, arguing it was a form of free speech. On Reddit, a thread in the r/true crime subreddit titled The Bianca Devins Case. Where do we draw the line? Gained thousands of comments, with users debating the balance between public awareness and exploitation. Bianca's family was overwhelmed by the online chaos. Kimberly Devins, Bianca's mother, sat with her sister, Connie, 42, as they scrolled through the flood of messages on their phones. Every notification brought a new wave of pain. Some were condolences from friends, but others were cruel comments from strangers who had seen the images. Kimberly spoke to Connie through tears at 3 p.m., saying, "I can't believe this is happening. My baby is gone, and people are treating her like a spectacle. I just want her back." The family's grief was compounded by the public nature of the tragedy, leaving them feeling exposed and violated. The arrest of Brandon Clark on July 14, 2019, marked the beginning of the legal process, but the online firestorm showed no signs of slowing down. The Instagram murder had become a global story, raising urgent questions about the role of social media in crime and the ethical responsibilities of both platforms and users. As the police prepared to charge Brandon, the world watched, waiting to see how justice would unfold. By late July 2019, the city of Utica, New York, was still reeling from the murder of 17-year-old Bianca Devins, a tragedy that had captured global attention after her killer, 21-year-old Brandon Clark, shared graphic photos of her body on Instagram and Discord. The viral spread of the images had turned a private loss into a public spectacle, leaving Bianca's family in anguish as they mourned her death. Brandon, who had been arrested on July 14, 2019, after attempting suicide at the crime scene, was now recovering in the hospital under police guard. As the investigation progressed, the legal system began to take shape, with the courts preparing to examine the mind of a killer whose obsession had led to a horrifying act. On July 15, 2019, just one day after the murder, Brandon Clark was formally charged with second-degree murder. The charge was filed by the Oneida County District Attorney's Office, led by District Attorney Scott McNamara, 52, who had seen many violent cases in his career, but was particularly shaken by this one. McNamara announced the charge in a press conference at 2 p.m., his voice steady but somber. "Brandon Clark is charged with second-degree murder in the death of Bianca Devins," he said. "This was a brutal and senseless act, and we will seek justice for Bianca and her family." The charge carried a potential sentence of 25 years to life, reflecting the severity of the crime. Brandon was still in St. Elizabeth Medical Center, recovering from his self-inflicted injuries when the charge was filed. He had stabbed himself in the neck and chest after killing Bianca, but emergency surgery had saved his life. By July 16th, he was stable enough to be moved to a secure medical ward, where he remained under constant police supervision. His arraignment was conducted via video link from the hospital on July 17, 2019. During the brief hearing, Brandon appeared pale and expressionless, his neck bandaged, as he entered a not guilty plea through his court-appointed attorney, 45-year-old Michael Cirillo. The judge set no bail, citing the gravity of the charge and Brandon's risk to himself and others. As the legal process began, investigators delved into Brandon's background, seeking to understand what had driven him to commit such a heinous act. They interviewed his family and friends, uncovering a history of mental health struggles that had plagued him for years. Brandon's mother, Lisa Clark, 50, told police that her son had battled depression and anxiety since his teenage years. He had been hospitalized for suicidal thoughts at age 16, and though he had received therapy, his mental health remained fragile. Lisa also revealed that Brandon had a history of obsessive behavior, particularly in relationships, often fixating on people to an unhealthy degree. The investigation also revealed Brandon's deep obsession with Bianca. The two had met on Discord in early 2019, and their relationship had quickly evolved into an in-person friendship. Bianca, who struggled with borderline personality disorder, often confided in Brandon about her mental health challenges, finding comfort in his understanding nature. But Brandon's feelings for her grew far beyond friendship. He began sending her frequent messages, sometimes dozens a day, expressing his love and desire to be with her. Bianca, however, was clear that she saw him only as a friend. She had told her mother, Bianca Devins, about Brandon's persistence, saying, "He keeps telling me he loves me, but I don't feel the same way." Court documents later revealed that Brandon had planned the murder in advance. In the days leading up to July 14, 2019, he had searched online for methods to kill someone, including phrases like how to slit a throat and best way to dispose of a body. He had also purchased the knife used in the murder a week earlier, keeping it hidden in his car. On the night of the concert, July 13, 2019, Brandon had brought a tarp with him, which he later used to cover Bianca's body after the killing. These details painted a picture of premeditation, contradicting any claim that the murder was a spontaneous act of passion. The court ordered a psychiatric evaluation for Brandon to assess his mental state at the time of the crime. Dr. Emily Harper, a 48-year-old forensic psychiatrist, conducted the evaluation over several sessions in August 2019. She found that Brandon exhibited signs of obsessive-compulsive disorder and narcissistic personality traits, which likely contributed to his fixation on Bianca. Dr. Harper noted that Brandon had a distorted view of their relationship, believing Bianca was obligated to return his feelings. When she kissed another friend, Alex, at the concert, Brandon's fragile sense of control shattered, leading to the violent outburst. However, Dr. Harper concluded that Brandon was fully aware of his actions and their consequences, making him legally responsible for the murder. Bianca's family attended every court hearing, their grief palpable in the courtroom. Bianca Devins sat in the front row during the initial hearings, clutching a photo of Bianca smiling at a family picnic. She spoke to a reporter outside the courthouse on July 20, 2019, her voice trembling with emotion. "Bianca was my light," she said. "She had her struggles, but she was so full of love. Brandon took her from us, and now we have to live with the fact that her death is all over the internet. We just want justice." The family's pain was compounded by the ongoing circulation of the graphic images Brandon had posted, which continued to resurface on various platforms despite efforts to remove them. The charging of Brandon Clark with second-degree murder in 2019 set the stage for a trial that would delve into the complexities of mental health, obsession, and the role of social media in modern crime. As the court examined Brandon's troubled mind, the world watched, waiting to see how the legal system would handle a case that had already left an indelible mark on society. The winter of 2020 brought a somber atmosphere to Utica, New York, as the legal proceedings in the murder of 17-year-old Bianca Devins moved forward. Her killer, 21-year-old Brandon Clark, had been charged with second-degree murder in July 2019, a charge that carried the weight of a potential life sentence. The case had already captured global attention, not just for the brutality of the crime, but for the way Brandon had shared graphic photos of Bianca's body on Instagram and Discord, turning a private tragedy into a viral nightmare. As the trial date approached, the courtroom became a space for Bianca's family to confront the man who had taken her life, and for Brandon to face the consequences of his actions. On February 10, 2020, Brandon Clark appeared in Oneida County Court for a scheduled pretrial hearing. He had been held in the Oneida County Jail since his release from the hospital in late July 2019, after recovering from his self-inflicted injuries. The courtroom was packed with reporters, Bianca's family, and members of the public, all waiting to see how the case would unfold. Brandon, now 22, sat quietly beside his attorney, Michael Cirillo, his face pale and expressionless. The hearing was expected to address motions regarding evidence, including the admissibility of Brandon's online searches and the photos he had posted. But what happened next took everyone by surprise. District Attorney Scott McNamara began the hearing by presenting the prosecution's case, outlining the evidence of premeditation, including Brandon's internet searches for killing methods and his purchase of the murder weapon. But before the defense could respond, Brandon whispered something to his attorney. Cirillo nodded, then addressed the court. Your Honor, my client wishes to change his plea, he said. The room fell silent as Brandon stood, his voice steady but low. I plead guilty to the charge of second-degree murder, he said, admitting to the murder of Bianca Devins on July 14, 2019. The plea came just weeks before the trial was set to begin, sparing the family the ordeal of a full trial, but also raising questions about Brandon's motives for the sudden change. Judge Michael Dwyer, 58, accepted the guilty plea, ensuring Brandon understood the consequences. By pleading guilty, you are waiving your right to a trial, Dwyer said. You face a sentence of 15 years to life, with the possibility of 25 years to life. Do you understand? Brandon nodded, replying, Yes, Your Honor. The plea agreement did not include a specific sentence, leaving the final decision to the judge at the sentencing hearing scheduled for March 2020. McNamara later told reporters outside the courthouse at 11 a.m., We believe this plea reflects the strength of our case. Brandon Clark has taken responsibility for his actions, and we will now focus on ensuring a just sentence for Bianca's family. The hearing then moved to impact statements, giving Bianca's family a chance to speak directly to the court and to Brandon. Kimberly Devins, Bianca's mother, took the stand first, clutching a small photo of Bianca in her hands. Her voice trembled as she spoke, her eyes fixed on Brandon. Bianca was my everything, she said. She was only 17, with so much life ahead of her. She loved art, music, and helping others. You took her from us because you couldn't handle her not loving you back. And then you made it worse by posting those pictures online, letting the world see her like that. I'll never forgive you for what you've done. Kimberly paused, wiping tears from her face before continuing. I hope you feel the weight of this every day for the rest of your life. Bianca's stepfather, Robert Devins, 41, spoke next, his voice filled with anger and grief. He described the pain of seeing Bianca's death exploited online, the constant reminders of the images that continued to circulate. You didn't just kill my daughter, he said to Brandon. You made sure her death followed us everywhere. We can't escape it. Every time I close my eyes, I see her, and I see what you did. You deserve to spend the rest of your life in prison. Robert's words echoed through the courtroom, a raw expression of a father's loss. Bianca's sister, Olivia Devins, 20, also gave a statement, her voice breaking as she spoke about the bond she shared with Bianca. She was my best friend, Olivia said. We shared everything, our dreams, our fears, our secrets. You took that away from me. I'll never get to see her grow up, to see her become the amazing person she was meant to be. I hope you understand the pain you've caused, not just to us, but to everyone who loved her. Olivia's statement was a poignant reminder of the personal toll of the crime, beyond the public spectacle it had become. Brandon was given the opportunity to speak after the family's statements, but he declined, remaining silent as he stared at the floor. His attorney, Michael Cirillo, spoke on his behalf, acknowledging the family's pain. My client understands the gravity of his actions, Cirillo said. He has struggled with mental health issues for years, and while that does not excuse what he did, we hope the court will consider it during sentencing. The psychiatric evaluation, which had been conducted in August 2019, was submitted to the court, detailing Brandon's obsessive behavior and mental health challenges, but also his awareness of the crime's consequences. The guilty plea on February 10, 2020, marked a significant step in the legal process, but for Bianca's family, it was only the beginning of their quest for justice. The impact statements had laid bare their grief and anger, setting the stage for a sentencing hearing that would determine Brandon's fate. As the courtroom emptied, the weight of the day lingered, a reminder of the profound loss at the heart of the Instagram murder. The spring of 2020 brought a sense of finality to the legal proceedings in Utica, New York, where the murder of 17-year-old Bianca Devins had left a community in mourning. Her killer, 22-year-old Brandon Clark, had pleaded guilty to second-degree murder on February 10, 2020, admitting to the brutal slaying that took place on July 14, 2019. The case had shocked the world, not only for its violence but for the way Brandon had shared graphic photos of Bianca's body on Instagram and Discord, turning her death into a viral spectacle. As the sentencing hearing approached, Bianca's family hoped for a measure of justice, but the lingering pain of the online exploitation of her death continued to haunt them. The sentencing hearing took place on March 16, 2020, in Oneida County Court. The courtroom was filled with tension as Bianca's family, reporters, and members of the public gathered to hear the judge's decision. Brandon Clark sat beside his attorney, Michael Cirillo, his expression blank as he awaited his fate. Judge Michael Dwyer, 58, presided over the hearing, his face stern as he reviewed the case file. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Scott McNamara, had pushed for the maximum sentence of 25 years to life, citing the premeditated nature of the crime and the additional harm caused by Brandon's online actions. Before the sentence was announced, the court heard additional statements from Bianca's family. Kimberly Devins, Bianca's mother, spoke first, her voice steady but filled with emotion. She held a photo of Bianca in her hands, a reminder of the vibrant girl she had lost. "Bianca was my light," Kimberly said. "She had dreams, she had struggles, but she always had love in her heart. Brandon took that from us, and then he made it worse by sharing those pictures online. I can't escape them. Every time I go online, I'm afraid I'll see my daughter's body again. I asked the court to give him the maximum sentence. He doesn't deserve to ever walk free." Her words were a raw plea for justice, reflecting the deep trauma her family endured. Bianca's grandfather, Frank Williams, 65, also spoke, his voice trembling with anger. "I'll never forget the day I found out Bianca was gone," he said. "And I'll never forget the pain of knowing her death was being shared for the world to see. Brandon didn't just kill her. He made sure we'd relive that moment over and over. He needs to pay for what he did." The statements underscored the family's ongoing struggle, not just with Bianca's death, but with the public nature of their grief. Brandon was given the chance to speak before sentencing. For the first time, he addressed the court, his voice low and halting. "I'm sorry for what I did," he said. "I know I can't take it back. I was in a dark place, and I let my emotions control me. I'm sorry for the pain I caused Bianca's family." His apology felt hollow to many in the courtroom, especially given the premeditated nature of the crime and his decision to share the images online. His attorney, Michael Cirillo, argued for leniency, citing Brandon's mental health struggles, including his history of depression and obsessive behavior, as mitigating factors. Judge Dwyer delivered the sentence at 11:30 a.m., his tone firm. "Brandon Clark, you committed a heinous act," he said. "The evidence shows this was a planned murder, driven by jealousy and obsession. Your decision to share images of the victim's body on social media caused immense additional harm to her family and community. The court sentences you to 25 years to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The maximum sentence was a small victory for Bianca's family, ensuring Brandon would spend at least a quarter-century behind bars. He was immediately taken into custody to begin serving his sentence at a state prison. Outside the courthouse, Kimberly Devins spoke to reporters at 12 p.m., her face etched with exhaustion, but also a flicker of relief. "No sentence can bring Bianca back," she said, "but I'm glad he'll be in prison for a long time. It's a step toward justice. But the fight isn't over. Those pictures are still out there, and we're still hurting." Her words highlighted a painful reality. While the legal battle had concluded, the emotional toll of the online circulation of Bianca's images persisted. In the months following the sentencing, the graphic photos continued to resurface on various platforms. Despite efforts by Instagram, Discord, and other sites to remove the content, users on 4chan, Reddit, and other corners of the internet kept sharing the images. Bianca's family received messages from strangers who had seen the photos, some offering condolences, others sending cruel taunts. On April 5, 2020, Kimberly found a new post on Twitter linking to the images, accompanied by a mocking caption. She reported it immediately, but the damage was done. Each new sighting reopened the wound of Bianca's death. The sentencing of Brandon Clark to 25 years to life on March 16, 2020, brought a measure of closure to the legal chapter of the Instagram murder, But for Bianca's family, the pain was far from over. The persistent circulation of the images online ensured that their grief remained a public ordeal, setting the stage for a new fight to protect Bianca's memory and prevent others from suffering the same fate. By 2022, the murder of 17-year-old Bianca Devins in Utica, New York, had become a haunting memory for her family, a tragedy that continued to resonate far beyond the courtroom where her killer, Brandon Clark, was sentenced to 25 years to life in March 2020. The brutality of the crime on July 14, 2019, was only part of the pain. Brandon's decision to share graphic photos of Bianca's body on Instagram and Discord had turned her death into a viral spectacle, leaving her family to grapple with the ongoing circulation of those images. In the years following the sentencing, Bianca's family channeled their grief into advocacy, pushing for legislative change to combat online exploitation, while social media platforms faced growing scrutiny for their role in the tragedy. Kimberly Devins, Bianca's mother, had spent the 2 years since the sentencing fighting to reclaim her daughter's memory. The graphic images of Bianca's body continued to resurface online, often shared by trolls on platforms like 4chan and Reddit, despite efforts by social media companies to remove them. Each new sighting was a fresh wound for the family. On January 10, 2022, Kimberly received a message from a friend who had stumbled across a Reddit thread containing the images, accompanied by cruel comments mocking Bianca's death. Kimberly reported the post, but the emotional toll was immense. She sat with her sister, Connie, that evening, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "I can't keep doing this," she said. "Every time I think we're moving forward, those pictures pull us back. We need to do something to stop this from happening to other families." That determination led Kimberly and Bianca's stepfather, Robert Devins, to advocate for a new law in Bianca's name. They began working with lawmakers in New York to draft Bianca's Law, a proposed piece of legislation aimed at combating the non-consensual sharing of graphic content online, particularly images of crime victims. The law sought to impose stricter penalties on individuals who share such content and to hold social media platforms accountable for failing to remove it promptly. On March 15, 2022, Kimberly and Robert met with New York State Assemblywoman Marian Buttonshaw, 55, to discuss the proposal. Buttonshaw was moved by their story and agreed to sponsor the bill. "Bianca's case shows the urgent need for change," Buttonshaw said at a press conference that day. "We need to protect victims and their families from this kind of harm." The push for Bianca's Law gained traction throughout 2022, drawing support from advocacy groups and other families who had experienced similar trauma. On June 20, 2022, Kimberly testified before a New York State Assembly committee, her voice steady as she shared Bianca's story. "My daughter's death was a tragedy, but the sharing of those images made it a nightmare," she said. "We're asking for laws that will hold people accountable and force platforms to act faster. No family should have to go through what we did." Her testimony was a powerful call to action, resonating with lawmakers and the public alike. Social media platforms faced increased scrutiny as the advocacy for Bianca's Law grew. Instagram, Discord, and other companies had removed the original posts of Bianca's images in 2019, but their initial slow response allowed the content to spread widely. In 2022, a report by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children highlighted the challenges of moderating graphic content online, citing Bianca's case as a key example. The report, released on August 5, 2022, noted that platforms often relied on user reports to identify harmful content, a system that failed when images went viral quickly. It called for more proactive measures, such as AI-driven content detection, to prevent the spread of such material. The scrutiny led to public pressure on social media companies. On September 10, 2022, Instagram announced new policies to address the issue, including faster response times for removing graphic content and improved tools for users to report harmful posts. A spokesperson for Instagram stated, "We are deeply sorry for the pain caused to Bianca Devins' family. We're committed to doing better." Discord followed suit, implementing stricter moderation guidelines and partnering with organizations to combat online exploitation. But for many, including Bianca's family, these changes felt like too little, too late. The images continued to circulate, often on less regulated platforms, leaving the family feeling powerless. Bianca's sister, Bianca Devins, 22, became a vocal advocate alongside her parents. On October 15, 2022, she spoke at a rally in Albany, New York, organized to support Bianca's law. Holding a photo of Bianca, Olivia addressed the crowd, her voice filled with determination. "Bianca was my little sister, my best friend," she said. "She deserved so much more than what happened to her. We're fighting for this law so that no one else has to endure what we have. Social media can be a dangerous place, and we need to make it safer." The rally drew hundreds of supporters, amplifying the call for change. The advocacy for Bianca's law in 2022 marked a turning point in the aftermath of the Instagram murder, as Bianca's family transformed their grief into a mission to protect others. The increased scrutiny on social media platforms highlighted the broader societal impact of the case, raising questions about how to balance free expression with the need to prevent harm. As the fight for legislative change continued, the legacy of Bianca's death grew, setting the stage for a lasting impact. By March 2025, the murder of 17-year-old Bianca Devins in Utica, New York, had become a somber chapter in the history of true crime, a case that continued to resonate 6 years after her death on July 14, 2019. The brutality of the crime, committed by 22-year-old Brandon Clark, was only part of the story. His decision to share graphic photos of Bianca's body on Instagram and Discord had turned her death into a viral nightmare, exposing the dark side of social media. Brandon was serving a 25 years to life sentence, but the impact of the Instagram murder lingered, serving as a stark warning about the dangers of online platforms, while Bianca's family persisted in their advocacy to protect others from similar harm. Brandon Clark, now 27, was incarcerated at Clinton Correctional Facility in New York, where he had been since his sentencing in March 2020. He had kept a low profile in prison, with no reported incidents, but his actions continued to cast a long shadow. Under the terms of his sentence, he would not be eligible for parole until 2044, when he would be 46 years old. For Bianca's family, the knowledge that he was behind bars provided some comfort, but it could not erase the pain of losing Bianca or the trauma of seeing her death exploited online. Kimberly Devins, now 44, had become a leading voice in the fight against online exploitation. The advocacy for Bianca's law, which began in 2022, had made significant progress by 2025. The law, officially passed in New York in December 2023, imposed stricter penalties for sharing non-consensual graphic content and required social media platforms to implement faster removal processes for such material. Kimberly had testified multiple times before lawmakers, her voice a powerful reminder of the human cost of inaction. On March 1, 2025, she spoke at a conference in Albany, New York, organized by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. "Bianca's law is a start," she said, holding a photo of her daughter. "But we need more. We need federal laws, global cooperation, to stop this from happening to other families. Bianca's memory drives me to keep fighting." The Instagram murder had become a symbol of social media's dangers, frequently cited in discussions about online safety. Schools across the United States had incorporated lessons about digital responsibility into their curricula, often referencing Bianca's case as a cautionary tale. On March 10, 2025, a high school in Utica held an assembly where Bianca's sister, Bianca Devins, now 25, spoke to students. "Bianca loved social media," Olivia said, her voice steady but emotional. "It was a place where she could be herself, share her art, connect with others. But it also became a place where her life was taken away. Be careful what you share online, and think about the impact of your actions." Her words resonated with the students, many of whom had grown up in a world dominated by social media. Social media platforms had made strides in addressing the issues highlighted by Bianca's case, though challenges remained. By 2025, Instagram had implemented advanced AI tools to detect and remove graphic content more quickly, and Discord had strengthened its moderation policies. But the internet's vastness meant that the images of Bianca's death still surfaced occasionally, often on less regulated platforms. On March 15, 2025, Kimberly received a message from a friend who had found a new post on a dark web forum linking to the images. She reported it to the authorities, but the incident was a painful reminder that the battle was far from over. Bianca's family continued to honor her memory in personal ways. On March 14, 2025, the 6th anniversary of her death, Kimberly and Robert visited her grave at Forest Hill Cemetery in Utica. They placed a bouquet of white roses, Bianca's favorite flower, on her headstone, which was engraved with the words, "Forever our light." Kimberly knelt by the grave, her voice soft as she spoke to her daughter. "I miss you every day, Bianca," she said. "We're doing everything we can to make sure your story helps others. I hope you're at peace, my sweet girl." The moment was a quiet reflection of their enduring love and loss. The legacy of the Instagram murder in 2025 was a complex one, marked by both progress and pain. The case had sparked important conversations about online safety, leading to legislative changes and increased awareness, but it had also left Bianca's family with a grief that would never fully heal. As they continued their advocacy, they carried Bianca's memory with them, a reminder of the girl who had been taken too soon and the urgent need to protect others from the dangers of the digital world.